Well, I'm waiting to do my reading on March the 3rd at the Du Bois Public Library. I thought I'd do a special reading for you. This is from the radio book In the Twist of the Dial, and this kind of explains how I got to have my name, Joe Taylor. The piece is Names, and it goes something like this. I've been known at various times as Bob Bell, Joe Tuttle, Jody Day, and Tom Jones. No, they weren't my criminal aliases. They were what we in radio call air names. They were used by announcers who couldn't use their given last name for various reasons. In my case, and in the case of many other Italians, Poles, and Eastern Europeans, we were asked to use them because it was felt our last names were too difficult to pronounce. And to be honest, we probably wanted to fit in, so we anglicized them. But often an announcer's name change was totally involuntary, dictated by management. I was the fourth Bob Bell at WSAY in Rochester, New York, where someone with no experience could, at minimum wage, $1 an hour in 1960, get experience. Every disc jockey who did the afternoon shift was Bob Bell. Every morning man was Tommy Thomas. Every evening jock was Mike Melody, the host of the all-request Melody Corner show. Get it? And what happened if Tommy Thomas was sick and I had to do mornings? Voila, I became Tommy Thomas. Our names were obviously bogus, bordering on ludicrous. But I assume in the mind of the owner they served a dual purpose. One was to cover up the inevitable leaving and moving on of young announcers, either trying to climb the ladder or realizing they just didn't have it. It also reminded those young announcers and his employ that we owed him, that we should be paying him $1 an hour for the experience we were getting. When the minimum wage was increased to $1.12 he gave us a raise, grudgingly, I'm sure. When I moved up the market ladder, which I always like to compare with baseball, rookie league, single A, double A, triple A, the majors, I was able to select my own name within parameters. I chose Tuttle, Joe Tuttle. It incorporated the first several letters of my real Italian name, Tuttabane, then veered safely to Northern Europe. I enjoyed a lot of success moving up through the minor leagues, small and medium New England markets to Springfield, Massachusetts, whereas Joe Tuttle, I did mornings. That's batting cleanup in radio. I played Sinatra, Streisand, and the like on WMAS, which was actually right next to Pinchin Park, where the Springfield Giants farm team of the San Francisco Giants played. I guess I was in baseball after all. The station was sold. The new owners decided country was the best music format, the one with the highest sales potential. They asked me to stay on. I declined, maybe fearful of being renamed Country Joe or Cousin Joe or something even worse. Long before Brooklyn Bridge's The Worst That Could Happen played on the radio, it happened to me. I was on the air mornings in Evansville, Indiana. No more seafood, no more hills, no more real pizza, no more Joe. They named me Tom Jones, for Christ's sakes. It was before they met me. We sent tape recordings in those days. They liked my air work, but I was miserable in Evansville. I called a buddy of mine who worked at another station in Springfield. He talked to his program director, who remembered me from WMAS and liked my sound. They had summer replacement work. I was out of Indiana on the train back to Massachusetts after less than a month in the heartland. The PD decided I couldn't be Joe Tuttle because somehow that would confuse listeners about what station they were listening to, and tweaked my name to Joe Taylor. Well, at least I had my Joe back. Ultimately, it served me well as years later in Pittsburgh I made it my legal name, and in doing so honored my Sicilian grandparents who spent their working years building the foundation for their children, doing piecework tailoring in a clothing factory. When summer and fill-in work ended in Springfield, I moved up a notch by moving down 60 miles to New Haven, Connecticut, doing mornings on a top 40 station with the call letters of WDEE. Of course, my new PD rechristened me Jody Day. Why not? Actually, tying the name of a DJ with the station's name is still fairly common and even more absurd today. A small broadcasting chain in Pennsylvania brands all of his country stations as Froggy, and multiple announcers across the chain are known on air with names like Pollywog and Kermit. WDEE was a top 40 station, but not the top 40 station in New Haven. I'd work for them later, switching from jockeying to news. As the second rock station in the market, WDEE couldn't pay all that well, so I did news part-time on weekends back up in Springfield on WSPR. The next summer, they again offered me fill-in work, this time 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., what we call afternoon drive. For three weeks in the mornings, I was Jody Day on WDEE, then a 60-mile trip up I-91, and I became Joe Taylor on WSPR. I carried 2 3x5 cards with me that summer, each having the station name and my name written boldly on it. I never screwed up. But I did hear a fellow announcer make a classic and to this day incomprehensible blunder, doing the same type of double duty. He was a rich voice guy who worked part-time on a very staid station in New Haven, WELI, as Gus Travers. His primary job was at WICC in Bridgeport, closer to New York, more a melting pot than Yale's hometown, where he could acknowledge his ethnic heritage. Because they played the more adult music I preferred, I was listening to WELI one afternoon when Gus was filling in and I heard him say, "This is Mariano Taormina," or rather, Gus Travers. To the listener, it probably seems that the people on the air are the most important to the radio station, the most prized and respected. The truth is that radio is a business, and like any other business, it's all about the bottom line, which means keeping sales up and expenses down. Announcers, as important as they may seem to the listener, are expenses, and offbeat, occasionally goofy expenses at that. Salespeople are the real stars. They bring in the money. Because of this fact, it's salespeople who are most often promoted to management positions in radio. But most salespeople, most managers, got into radio in the first place because they wanted to be on the air. When they were told or realized they weren't talented enough to become talent, they became salespeople and then managers. They made more money, but they never stopped resenting the fact that they couldn't cut it on the air. Many managers resent their announcers because they're expensive, but more so because these guys and gals are talking on the air and they're not. So what do? They change the announcers' names, they give them stupid names, they even have them sign their names away. The personal contract I had with both of the Pittsburgh stations I worked for gave them the right to my sobriquet. I didn't know I had one. The right to my name, the name Joe Taylor. Just as I was the fourth Bob Bell at my first station, anybody could have been the second or 11th Joe Taylor at these Pittsburgh stations. Maybe it's one of them, not me, who wrote this. I think it was me. I kind of remember doing it. That's one of the pieces, one of 50 pieces in my book. I don't have a copy of it with me right now, but you know the book, In the Twist of the Dial, What Happened to Radio 1960 to 2020. It's available on Amazon at Amazon Books and also at the Watershed Bookstore in Brookville. I hope you enjoyed this reading and look forward to seeing if you can make it at the Du Bois Library on Thursday, March the 3rd at 6:30. Thanks.